Welcome back to Kimchi Rednecks. We are in the kitchen and we're doing Korean food.
We're making kimchi Sundubu Jjigae.
Yes, which is kimchi tofu stew. Dubu is tofu. So now, are we going to show pictures from the other run?
So we did do a test run, and it was a terrible day for a test run. I basically I looked over the recipe. I looked it over. Suki was having a rotten day, so I didn't have time to do anything other than that, and then we went to cook. So I'll show you pictures of what it turned out like.
It's not the most appetizing looking dish.
I swear this doesn't look like her picture at all. Her tofu does not look like this.
Well,
it tasted fine. It was good.
It
didn't look very pretty, and I was disappointed.
I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't our best effort. We felt we could do better.
I know I can do better. So for the original one, I used the ultimate soup stock, which is that
radish anchovy kelp based stock mix.
So basically this is like little tea bags that you put in the water and you make your stock out of it. And so I did use that. It stunk up my whole house. I was not a huge fan of the smell.
She didn't appreciate the smell.
But it doesn't taste the same way that it smells, which is weird to me. But anchovies have a very strong scent, and he's allergic, and I don't really like the smell of it. So I opted not to do that this time, just because I wanted to try it with something that I knew that I would like better.
Right.
So instead of the ultimate Korean stock, because you can alternate stock if you need to for your dietary constraints, which we do occasionally do because the seafood might make him a little too sick. So this time we are using a vegetable stock that I have made, and I've made that from Better Than Bullion's vegetable base, which you can make stock out of. I love this stuff.
So to be fair,
it's a paste you add with water.
If you take the anchovies out of the ultimate Korean stock, it's pretty much all vegetable anyway, so veggie broth.
But this is akjot, and this is a fish sauce made out of anchovies.
Yes.
And I'm actually going to add a teaspoon of that into our broth, because that's going to add the umami to it, but also it's going to keep that anchovy flavor still back in there a little bit.
Now, some of this stuff is going to pop up in another one of our videos about things that you should be able to find in any Korean pantry, or things you should have in your pantry if you're cooking Korean food.
So, definitely, I appreciate having this, and I have added that back into our stock, which we'll come back to. So, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to mix our paste, Chuck, and I'm going to let you be the paste mixer.
Ooh, I'm paste mixer?
You're paste mixer.
All right.
All right. So you need to put in 4 tablespoons of gochugaru. And there's your tablespoon.
4. Il-i-samsa.
Look at you.
It doesn't fit.
Uh-oh. Do you want one that fits?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I think you can make it work. Might be time to get gochugaru soon.
Then we're running a little low, huh?
We're not usually this low. Okay, Chuck, so I'd like you to add to that a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, which you have a 1/4 teaspoon and black pepper right over there. It's very convenient.
Yes. It's almost like we planned ahead.
I kind of, almost. Maybe I did.
Close enough for government work.
All right. So now, sir, you're going to add 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. The recipe we're using is adapted from minced, and we used a little bit of julienne and a little bit of Sunkyung, yes. So we've kind of adapted a bit.
Like most home cooking recipes in Korea, there's about 5,000 variants of all of the same thing, so you can find something to fit your taste.
All right, so I'm going to need that spoon back at some point, so take that from you. Now mix that up. It should be... The one person said beachy sand. I'm thinking just mix it up. Do you remember what it looked like last time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of that wet, coarse sand look.
Yeah,
so.
Wet, beachy sand. While you're doing that, I'm going to get our tteokbokki. This is a nice soup-sized tteokbokki. I'm going to go ahead and get that heated up onto a medium-high heat, which I'll get you to check the temperature on that because you know this thing is fun. So your tteokbokki, if you do not have one, you're going to want to use a heavy-bottomed pot or a Dutch oven. You want something that's going to take a little bit of time for the bottom of it to heat, basically, because you don't want to overcook everything that's going to be on the bottom of it. This, however, will hold the heat once it's actually heated. So that's one of the reasons why I think the Koreans love that a lot, is because it does hold heat, especially for soups and stews. Is it where you like it?
Yeah. For people who don't really understand thermodynamics, if the fire is not under the pot, it's going around the pot, you're wasting fire. It's just heating up the air. You want your fire under the pot. All right, so what we got here is tteokbokki. Tteokbokki is heating up, and we need to make sure that it is hot enough to add oil or to start cooking our stuff. So we're gonna do a little water test. All right, so the water starts boiling, so it's hot, but it doesn't like vaporize, so it's not hot yet.
It's not there yet.
All right, so it doesn't take too much longer to heat up after that. So now we're looking, yeah, probably about as good as we're gonna get because the flame's a little lower, so it stays under the bowl.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start to add some stuff. All right, so now our tteokbokki is ready. It is heated, so we're going to add to that 2 teaspoons of oil. For you, it could be vegetable oil. For us, it's actually canola oil. Probably want to grab a wooden spoon, Chuck, so you can kind of swirl that around in there. Kind of spread it out a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's looking.
So now we have cut up 5 ounces of pork cubed. Alright Chuck, so we are ready to add our garlic in. We've got a little bit of color on there, a little bit of translucent going on the onions. We'll get a little bit closer in just a second. If
you're using a tteokbokki direct on fire, this thing gets kind of dummy hot, so, and I mean like stupid hot. It's browning our stuff pretty quick.
So,
how much of this?
Here's 2 full scoops of that. I'd add just a tad bit more since that first one was a little light. There you go. Alright, so we've got 2 cloves of minced garlic added in. We did add just a touch of more oil to it because
it got so
really hot.
It got so hot it cooked the oil out.
It cooked the oil fast.
So I'm gonna mash the garlic down in the bottom there. Probably gonna take about 30-45 seconds. That garlic ought to start browning a little bit, smelling aromatic. Don't let it burn. Keep an eye on it.
You gotta keep an eye on everything that's going on in there. So, as you can tell right now, our meat has a little bit of color on it. Our onions are getting a little bit of color and becoming a little more translucent. We do actually have some cut up green onion in there. You can add that, you don't have to, but we did add that because we had some cut up.
Starting to smell the garlic. All right. And what's next on our list?
You got the garlic in?
Yep.
All right, so you're gonna add the kimchi. We've got a cup of kimchi there. And I've pulled out the spatula there for you. This is probably gonna be needed to get the kimchi out. So this is the kimchi. We have cut it up. Actually use the scissors to cut that in the bowl because that way I don't lose any of my liquid.
And you want that kimchi juice.
And you want an aged kimchi with this.
If you can, you want the aged kimchi.
What was it? Chef Julie Yoon said, you know, the one that is fermented a little bit longer, so it's got a little bit more smell to it, it's a little more ripe. This one was definitely ripe when we opened it, wasn't it?
Yep, and it's definitely ripe when it hits the heat.
Okay, so I'd stir fry that for just a little bit. That's not necessary. You don't actually have to do it. Some people add it and then add their stock immediately, but I kind of want to give it a second to kind of meld in with the others. Also, the sides of the bowl are hot because the fire is rising, so press it around and let it cook it in. Whenever you are ready, Chuck, you can add that cup of stock right there, because then we're going to cover it and cook it for 7 minutes. All right. This is going to be just enough for 2 people to eat. We hope. Oh, I think it will. Chuck eats way more stew than I eat most of the time anyways, so I think this will be plenty. All right, so your amount of stock you put in should bring it just up enough to cover all your veggies. All right, so our tteokbokki has a lid. So we're going to put our lid on. Okay, so while our tteokbokki is boiling here, we have 2 kinds of tofu. We have the actual sundubu, which is the super soft tofu, but we weren't sure if that was enough, so we have a little extra. Well, also, I like the texture of the other tofu, so we thought we'd add some extra in. Right. So this is more of a medium tofu. It's got a little more
structure to it. So I'm gonna just cut it into cubes.
So one of the things we know we did wrong last time, because I did not pay attention, was cutting our tofu. How are you supposed to actually cut this one?
So what we did last time was we just kind of cut the end off of it.
We squeezed it out
and
of...
squeezed it out.
That was a bad idea.
Yeah, it basically just kind of breaks it all down and it almost dissolves into the soup. While not bad, you don't get the visual effects you're supposed to get. What you're supposed to do is just cut that bad boy in the middle
and then
squeeze the two halves out.
Probably get about 2 more minutes, but let's go ahead and check it, make sure we're not burning. So a tteokbokki lid does not have a handle for you to be able to get it, so you have to be very careful when you're taking that off.
Requires a little bit of hand grip strength.
It's looking pretty good so far.
It's looking pretty good.
By the way, guys, my rice cooker over there, see that? That's cooking. I cooked rice in the rice cooker. See? Chuck, not all white people cook their rice in a pot.
Yeah, Uncle Roger.
All right, so we got about a minute more on that. So we'll let that 2 minutes more.
We'll put the lid back on it because you don't actually want to boil all that liquid out.
So Chuck, while you're waiting for the tteokbokki to finish its boiling time, what do you usually do?
Well, you have to do the Sundubu dance to get it to speed up.
Okay, show me the Sundubu dance.
Sundubu Jjigae is in the tteokbokki. Sundubu Jjigae is in the tteokbokki.
Does that
I totally made this up.
Does that make it cook faster?
Yes, because the heat of the embarrassment of me singing that to it makes it boil faster.
Got it. All right, so now, Chuck, I would like for you to add 2 teaspoons of salt, please, sir. No, your spoon probably doesn't fit in there.
Probably not. Ah. 2?
2.
Okay, I count to 2 real good.
You do. And then 1 teaspoon of sugar, please, sir. I'm gonna mix that salt in while he's doing that.
And that wasn't a whole
No, that was not a whole
thing, so I'll get a little, there you go.
Okay, so now...
Do we need that for anything?
We are good. Now we are going to add our tofu in.
So that is the big money shot that most people like. That's the big chunks of tofu going in. Those kind of came apart a little bit.
So that's okay though, because you're actually going to break it apart a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
You actually want this to cook in large chunks.
You don't want to disintegrate it, which is what we did last time.
Right. And because we weren't sure if we had enough tofu, with the knife.
You're just going to add a little extra in?
Add some extra.
But also because Melissa really loves tofu.
Well, that and because we've opened the tofu, we're not going to use it for anything else, so it's going in.
So this is not only Sundubu Jjigae, this is Dubu Jjigae. Sundubu Jjigae. This is double Dubu Jjigae. Okay, so now, Chuck, we're going to put our hot pepper paste mix on top.
Most of it, you want to save a little bit for the end to add on top.
This is what's going to give it that bright red look.
Alright, we'll save the rest of that for the end.
Alright, and then you want to spread it out a little bit so that it gets in there.
Now, resist the urge to stir this. You don't want to stir it in, you want to let it cook down from the top. I have made that mistake before.
It does have the oil in there, so... Alright.
Alright. Oh, mushrooms.
Oh yeah, you better put your...
We have some enoki mushrooms.
Enoki mushrooms.
And we're just going to spread those out on top.
Your green onions.
Well, we still got a couple minutes to cook.
We'll be back in just a minute. So we got our rice in our rice cooker. Chuck likes his rice bowl not to be completely hot. So I'm going to be nice and actually do it in bowls that won't be steaming hot on him.
Yes, those little steel bowls they're decorative, but they transmit heat like a...
They keep your rice hot, which is nice.
They do that.
Okay, so now we got our rice. We do, when we get to the table, we'll show you, we do have a couple of side dishes. I did not make those, but we do have them.
The good thing about convenience stores and grocery stores in Korea is they got a lot of stuff you can buy.
Alright, so now, Chuck, I think it is time for you to add your egg. So I'm going to switch places with you.
Alright.
Because I believe you can crack an egg without getting a shell in. I don't.
So the egg, before people start screaming, salmonella, is, I know, an important part of the flavor of Sundubu Jjigae. Now, some people, you'll see crack it, put it in there, and tell you to let it sit for like a minute or two. Some people crack it, put it in there, wait 30 seconds, and then start stirring it. Some people crack it, put it in there, and let it sit through the entire meal, and they eat the egg last, because they apparently just like their egg.
Which person are you, Chuck?
I like to put this in there, let it sit for about 30 seconds, and then stir it up, because the creaminess of the yolk and the egg white is supposed to mix throughout the dish for me.
Okay.
In my mind. All right.
Are you ready? No shells. So the other fail that we had the last time I made this was I'd cracked the egg and I put it in a bowl, and when I brought it over, I guess there wasn't enough stuff under it. It sunk to the bottom.
Yeah,
poached itself immediately.
It just dropped right to the bottom like a rock.
But it was a good poached egg, wasn't it? We do not cover it again.
Right.
No. In fact, you can let it do what it's going to do for 30 seconds and then do what you need to do.
Yep. Let's put a little more fire on it. See if we can get it up to a good hard boil. So if you can see here.
Here, let me hand you the camera so they can see what you want them to see.
If you can see through the white part of the egg, you can still see through it. When the bottom of it starts to turn white and the egg is starting to cook, that's when you want to stir it. All right, well, I'm actually kind of surprised. If you look at the egg here, you can see it's just barely starting to cook through the white there, and it's been boiling for like 3 or 4 minutes now. So apparently my estimates on how long it took for that to start to cook was a little bit off.
Maybe a little bit.
Anyway, so we should be done cooking, so I'm gonna kill the heat and we're gonna move it over to the table. I'm gonna grab this just as an assist. There is an actual tool for grabbing these things.
I don't know how much I trust that. Are you sure about that?
Oh, turn the fire off.
I will get the fire once you get it.
Yeah, safety note, turn the fire off before you start moving the stuff. That's
Good plan.
pretty important.
All right, we're going to get set up and then we're going to eat.
All right, so we are at the table, and we're going to clip to the other video feed, but if you can see the egg here now, it's white on the bottom, but translucent in the middle. This is when you want to stir it. So cut that. Oh, we got stuff on the bottom of the pot.
Yeah, you're not supposed to let that burn.
We let that go a little too long. Woo.
I think the setup with the camera took a little longer than we expected.
Yeah. The problems with that YouTube life.
That's okay, though.
All right. So we might, I think you might have been right. We might possibly could have used a little more soup, broth.
I can add a little more broth if you'd like.
We're good.
Okay.
We'll go with it as is.
All right, Chuck, dig in.
All right, let's test the broth here, what we can get of it.
It's pretty red, which makes me a little nervous.
Oh, you want to mix more broth than that.
Strong?
Ooh. Yeah. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. And so I made about a cup more of our veggie broth, our stock, which is hot.
We're going to add just enough that it kind of levels everything out.
Well, when I looked at it too, it was very red. So I think our delay in getting to it from setting up the camera might not have helped. A little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit more. So if you cook it for a while with the lid off, oh, made a mess there. It's gonna boil down.
Well, you need to be careful too not to let your tofu hit the bottom and actually cook to the bottom of the pot. You don't want it to do that.
Which hopefully we did. And I think some
it's
pork.
fine. It's fine.
That's good. The pork is at the bottom. That's the bit you want to get crispy.
All right, so let's see.
At least the sauce is a bit thinner again. Better.
We always knew it would be a question of whether I could eat it. I'm putting tofu in it because tofu will temper the taste a little bit. It'll soak in some of that, hopefully.
By the way, we'll throw up a couple pictures real quick of what it looked like before we stirred it up and after we stirred it up, so you can see what the goodness this looked like when it came to the table.
It is definitely hot.
Woo! Both temperature and spice.
Yeah. The good news is we have other things in it, so...
Are we sure we didn't use the Gochugaru mix from the 4-person recipe instead of the...
No. No.
Remember, the recipe I had was a one person, and I had to double it.
Oh, you know what? That's where we messed up. We usually cut the Korean thing in half, so if it was for one person, we should have kept it at that. Oops.
I'm working on my spice level, Chuck. Honestly, I'm not mad. It looks better than it did last time. It's definitely a little spicier than last time.
Although we did a better, a better thing. We did a better cook with the pork, because last time the pork we got was some gepsal, which is pork belly, and depending on the cut of pork belly you get, I'm sure you've seen some cuts of bacon that were like little streaks of meat and big hunks of fat.
Well, my problem was the guy at the Korean market was selling pork, and I said that I was making Sundubu Jjigae, and he directed me directly to that. So I don't know if he realized I was making it in the Sundubu Jjigae or I was making it with the Sundubu Jjigae. Maybe he thought I was making some gepsal with the Sundubu Jjigae.
I don't know.
don't know.
But when you get cuts like that, in fact, some of those cuts still come with the skin on them, and you need to trim those. We didn't, and was not the best.
It was interesting.
It was interesting. Was not the best, though.
You have not mentioned that you have banchan.
Yes, we have banchan. We have side dishes. Yes, you can buy these in pretty much any supermarket or convenience store in most places. But first off, we have some sort of
Soybeans.
marinated soybeans,
I'm getting soy sauce.
which is a nice little. Doesn't have any real strong flavor, but it's a nice.
It's not hot.
It's nice and chewy.
It's not hot.
And then we got these, which is marinated quail eggs with little with beef strips.
Yeah, you like the marinated quail eggs.
I do like marinated quail eggs. Mainly because they do a really good job of hard boiling those. It's like just the right level of hard boil. Be a little more realistic. Not much more realistic though. So we got our mushrooms, we got our dubu, we got our onions and
Your double dubu.
our double dubu. Get that in some rice. Yeah, it's good. Definitely make sure that you keep stirring it. Otherwise, you can burn whatever's on the bottom. This tteokbokki gets stupid
hot.
hot.
But we didn't actually burn anything on the bottom. The pork got a little crisp.
We got some crispy pork on the bottom, but hey,
Nobody's mad about that.
nobody's mad about that. So,
But the reason you want to keep stirring it is you don't want your tofu to end up on the bottom and burnt.
yeah, because burnt tofu is not a... Then it has a flavor and it's not good. But overall, this one was a much better...
I did a little more research today.
Put a little more effort into figuring it out.
Suki Dog was not quite so much of a pain in the butt today. The dementia was actually not as bad. She's actually napping right now, which is nice. Because normally when we're at the table, she's over here crying at us. So the good news is, actually I'm not mad about our first trial of this because we knew that I can eat Sundubu Jjigae. So we did know that because we made it the first time. We also knew there were some things that we wanted to change from the way the recipe that I did use the first time worked anyways. So we did a little more research and that's how we melded this recipe together.
It's a Franken recipe.
Now we know that we probably want to use less gochugaru next time.
That was...
Aren't you grateful for that? It was like a teaspoon of sugar that we added.
I don't know that that teaspoon of sugar did a whole lot against that amount of gochugaru, but...
To be fair, we were doing really well until we added our pepper paste, and we should have probably added half of that to start.
Yeah.
We knew better. We knew better. We didn't do better, but we knew better. Mentally, my brain was going, maybe we shouldn't put all of that on to start.
Full send!
At least I stopped him before we put the whole thing on. Then we probably wouldn't be able to eat it at all. Actually, I do actually like it too, having the extra tofu in there. I love the silken tofu because it's a very smooth and obviously silky taste to it. It just kind of melts.
But the medium tofu adds a little more solid texture to it. So even if your silken tofu does break down more than you want, you've still got the rest of it to kind of hold it up. So
if you're looking to make it a vegan dish,
just take the meat out.
just take the meat out and you can use that extra tofu.
If you want a vegan dish, take the meat out.
You're terrible. So you take the meat out, obviously, but having that extra tofu in there gives you that extra protein that you would still need. So.
And if you're not using the ultimate soup base, it doesn't have anchovy in it, so.
Yeah, and you don't have to use the anchovy sauce that we used in ours. But I do think that added a little level of umami to it.
It did. It added a little flavor to
I
it.
like a little umami.
So,
Umami.
while we get umami'd, you
I'm
guys,
gonna umami him.
you guys like, subscribe, do the internet stuff. Cook some Korean food. It's good stuff.
Oh, and remember, if you're white like me,
Cut the spice level in
clear
half.
spice a little bit. But honestly, you've seen I'm still eating this and I'm not crying. I'm also not sweating that much.
She's also been in Korea for 6 years. She should have built up some tolerance.
Almost 5.
5.
Almost 5.
4, 5, 6. What's the difference?
How long have we been married?
I don't know. A couple months.
It'll be a year in April.
So I was
Forever. We've been married forever.
You got to remember, it's 2022. We've either been married for a couple months or like 5 years. I'm not sure which. The last 2 years have been.
But it's been wonderful with me, right? You love me. I cook for you. I
So
cook with you.
anyway, guys, enjoy your food. We'll see you next time.